Hey everyone, welcome to Myopia Movies. This week, in honor of the new show on Disney Plus for Willow, we are reviewing the classic movie of the same name. This is an era where we've done a lot of these kinds of movies, including Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, and Legend. But this one, of course, is completely bolstered on the charm of Warwick Davis, and it's going to be, well, I haven't even watched it yet, but here's to the new show. Thanks for doing all you do to make this year so successful. And I hope that your holiday season, your Thanksgiving wasn't too stressful. Your holiday season is nice and relaxing. And continue listening to us into the new year. Thanks, guys. Welcome to Myopia Movies. This week, we're talking Willow, the movie that George Lucas weaseled his way into. I am your host, Nick Hoffman, Riffer on Cineprov, and host of Required Reading on a Pen. We've got
Candace, also Riffer on Cineprov, host of the regular Big Show live at the Plaza Theater. I also run Geek Trivia on Monday nights at Felix's Bar on Piedmont, and overall, I'm here to give you a good time.
I am Atlanta author Matthew W. Quinn. Check out my novella, Little People, Big Guns.
And I'm Charlie Rose, just Charlie. Nothing special, just Charlie.
That is not true. Charlie is amazing and special.
And I will say,
Charlie owns a house.
No.
He's the dream we will never be, Matt.
I was going to just say some people are so good at what they do, they don't need to advertise. But also, landed gentry. Goatee haver.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's move on then.
That's right.
With that,
fashionista. So today we're talking about the children's movie Willow, starring Val Kilmer, starring special effects. George Lucas executive produced. He wanted you to know that. I don't know. This is a Disney Plus movie that's pretty dark, and also just has got magical powers. I don't know. So how did all of you come across this movie? Did you see it when it first came out?
I did.
I did not. I would have only been like 5 or 6 when it came out in theaters, and so I don't remember seeing it in theaters, but I remember seeing it as a kid, like on television.
Sure.
I would have been about 4 when it came out, but at that point in my life, I was only interested in cartoons.
Yeah. I was, and one of the things that you have to remember at this time, Willow was actually a big deal. Like they mass marketed. You had the tie-ins with, I think it was Burger King, maybe. They had the tie-ins.
Yeah,
and
that
then,
sounds right.
And all sorts of other stuff. I mean, it was everywhere. Willow was everywhere. It was a hot mess.
Well, and like, this was, I think, 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So like, George Lucas still had this like whiff of magic about him, and of course, like, it's also. I said Val Kilmer, but Warwick Davis is the star of this show.
Oh, yeah.
And he's, of course, Wicket. Yeah. And we're going to do, later this season, spoilers, a couple of the Ewok movies. And we're going to do, for Christmas, because we're letting the future know, we're doing the Star Wars Christmas special as one of our December episodes.
Can I be B. Arthur in it?
You're just going to, like, appear and kick us out by singing?
I don't think we're reenacting it, but you have my vote.
Oh, I was hoping we were going to shadow cast it. Never mind.
Oh, my God. If anyone has the script and we just instead acted out the script, let us know.
Let me write myself a little reminder note to do.
As long as I get to be Carrie Fisher, just drunk and, like, high off.
You're
she
the
doesn't know
dancer.
where she is.
You're the solid gold dancers, Charlie. All of them.
So he's not going to be a Wookiee named Itchy?
There's medicine for that.
As long as I get to do the cooking show in the middle where you're just cramming shit down. Oh my God. And this is where Boba Fett appeared for the first. We're not even talking about the right movie. Anyway,
I think we are talking about the right movie. He was in it.
No. I mean, we're talking about Willow.
We're talking about Willow, not Star Wars.
Willow. I only mention it because I don't know what kind of contract. Maybe just George Lucas buys people when they're young. But because Warwick Davis was in this, he's an executive producer.
It says he gets a story credit, but as Matt brought out off mic, there was a lawsuit about that anyway.
There was a lawsuit about Willow?
The story credits.
The writing credits for Willow?
No, I wasn't.
I think Daniel had brought
Oh,
that up.
Daniel brought it up. I'm sorry. Daniel shat and gat, so we're without him right now.
Time to hit up the almighty Wikipedia and see what it says.
I'm going to not, because that's like reading TV tropes on a show. It just makes you sad. But here's the thing. This movie starts out with Moses and ends with Lord of the Rings, and that's kind of incredible.
It's got a hot redhead dressed like a Mongol.
So tell us more about your fetishes, Matt.
You'll have to pay for that, Nick.
All right. Well, we had a Patreon paywall, but since we don't anymore, sign up for Matt's OnlyFans, Quinn on Demand. So, Charlie...
The Quintatorship. I have my own evil throne in my apartment I need to pay off.
In an alternative dimension, that's a potato porn site, Quintators.
Oh my goodness.
All right, Charlie, can you give us a plot synopsis of what we're talking about?
Yeah. So basically, there's a evil queen who rules this world, this Celtic-inspired world. Okay.
Isn't it always the way?
Yes, obviously. And it is very much sword and sorcery. And it's sort of like they took the concept of the prophesized baby set adrift and mashed it with the hero's journey. Though it's argued who the hero is. Is it Willow or is it Mad Mardigan? I think that Willow is clearly the hero in this. But basically, shenanigans ensue, and they defeat the evil witch.
Can we call it Chick Mordor? Because you've got the evil
Mordor. Queen
and then her daughter, and they're the two of the three most powerful people in what looks like Mordor.
No, it's actually more substantial, but the reason why it was so good, the reason why it really captured people's hearts and minds at the time was because it took a classic sword and sorcery and really applied the basics to it.
And I don't generally like Ron Howard as a director, but between him and his staff, this movie comes together very smoothly.
Oh, yeah.
And we've done a lot of movies from this era, including Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and all that stuff, which has so much mythology, it weighs it down, and you either buy it or you don't. This movie is pretty. It's got a good cast. And for someone who's only, I looked it up, he was 18. Warwick Davis carries this movie on his little back.
Oh, yeah.
And nails it. And Val Kilmer's good in it, but he shows up as comic relief and or a little bit of muscle. But it's a Warwick Davis movie, which in Return of the Jedi, you never saw his face because he's an Ewok.
Yeah.
Good on him. He nails it. And I mean, we've done 2 of his movies, and guess what? He's the leprechaun.
Exactly. But no, I mean, this movie, despite it having, a classic tropes, it was fresh. It was new. It was a different take upon the sword and sorcery concept. And I think that's what really caught people.
Right.
100%.
So, as you started with, we start with the Moses story, but with if Tolkien wrote it?
Yes.
Because
exactly.
there's a lady running with a baby, and there's arrows and dog hamster things?
Correct. Well,
instead of cat dog, the rat dog, because that's what they are.
They're called Nockmar hounds.
Yeah, Nockmar hounds. Yeah, no, the child was born with this tattoo, and this tattoo, this mark, is a birthmark, not a tattue. They wouldn't be tattooing babies.
It's a rune. It's
very clearly a rune.
It's obviously a rune.
Yeah, the evil queen is a bit more genre savvy.
Yeah.
Instead of killing all the babies in the kingdom, she just arrests all the pregnant women and checks each one when they're born.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, which I got to tell you, kind of better than our current healthcare system. It's like, you're pregnant, you can stay here, we'll feed you, you got a midwife. Now, the trade-off is we might kill your baby if it has that rune, but otherwise, thank you for staying at the Hilton. Have a great day, and then you get to go.
All expenses paid, vacation in Chick Mordor.
But then you're kicked out without any support for raising the baby in true...
Oh, shit, man, it's just like now. Never mind, go ahead. Keep
exactly.
Keep going.
But no, this baby is...
by George Lucas.
The baby's prophesized to be the downfall of the evil queen, sorceress, ruler, woman, And so that's why she's so fixated on destroying this child.
Yes, that's Queen Bavmorda.
Bavmorda, yeah.
Bavmorda.
And it's not just a simple, like, murder the child. It's she needs to exile the child's soul to some far-off dimension.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Time to Make Nick Mad, the novelization says that she's afraid of the child will reincarnate. So
Did you read the novel?
I actually want to, because it has a lot more of the backstory that make the story make more sense.
He's been up since 4 a.m. He actually said.
So I'm actually going to look, see if I can find the novelization for like $1 on Amazon or something.
Dearest Martha, I've been reading the Willow. Anyway, so,
Dearest Nikki,
Why do you think he got
there's
here
a
at
dwarf.
6:51 instead of 6:50?
I will say, just credit, because we'll get into the nonsense later, but just technically, it looks gorgeous. But also, James Horner did this soundtrack.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
And the music is
top notch.
Speaking of, because we were talking about it off mic, but he did Star Trek Wrath of
Wrath
Khan.
of Khan, yes.
He did Titanic. He did Star Trek 3. He did previous episode Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He did previous episode The Rocketeer. Previous episode Aliens. Previous episode Mask of Zorro. Previous episode Deep Impact. Beautiful Mind, and The Amazing Spider-Man.
And didn't he write the very original score for James Bond? 007?
He did the ones in the 90s. He did the ones for Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought for some reason, I thought he'd done the older stuff.
The first movie came out when he was 10.
Oh, well, then never mind. I mean, he's good, but he ain't that good. Calm down.
He was doing the soundtracks in the womb.
Going,
Right.
doo, 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 doo.
You gotta start young.
I bring this up because we were talking earlier, but Sword and Sandals kind of also, it needs that epic soundtrack. Like, I mean, even if we're talking Roman Sword and Sandal with Gladiator, it's all about that feeling of majesty. This movie has that, which is hard because, again, it's as though there were no elves. It was just the hobbits and Lord of the Rings. Because whenever a human comes across, they're assholes except for Mad Madigan.
Well, Mad Madigan is an asshole too. He just has an arc.
And he's also sympathetic to no one until he has to be, which is cool. He's the rogue.
When we first meet him, he's in a crow king.
There's no Han in this movie, but you could make a Han Solo if you wanted.
So is Sorcha like Leia crossed with Darth Vader?
No, Sorcha's just a badass. You don't have. We need more evil women, like real life.
You got them.
George Lucas was going through a divorce at this point, so we needed a real bitch in charge. It's always funny when you see George Lucas going through one of his many divorces, because he hates women all of a sudden. Not a joke. It's just true.
Damn.
That bitch again. We start off almost effectively in. If Judeo-Christianity started in the Shire, there's a baby floating downstream, and then there's just a bunch of kids.
Because the midwife took the baby from Chick Mordor, and apparently was on the run for months because that baby grows some hair. And before the rat dogs chase them down and kill her, but she has set the baby floating down the river, where she is found by 2 children and their dad, Warwick Davis, who is plowing his fields with a pig. And there's a midget loan shark who's after his land.
The whole thing going on behind is, again, if you've read the actual Lord of the Rings trilogy, it's the Shire. It's just a lot of low-level nonsense. Like, there may or may not be monsters in the woods. It just speeds it up. And credit where credit's due, you get pulled into this world immediately.
Exactly. They don't really explain a lot what's going on, but you catch it in their attitudes. Like, this community of little people do not like outsiders. They will not deal with them. They do not trust them. And now one of these baby giants just floated in, and they think it's a ill omen. And so Willow is basically told, get this thing out and take it to the first,
Daikini.
Basically humans that you find at the crossroads.
That's right. And at first they try to keep the baby a secret.
But
then one of these dogs attacks their village.
Exactly.
And that's why they then have to take it to the High Elder, of whom we meet. And that is Billy Barty.
Billy Barty.
Is that the wizard? Is that the wizard or the loan shark?
That's the wizard.
No, that's the wizard. He was Gwildor.
Yes.
Oh yeah, because the wizard was Willow, in addition to being a pig farmer harassed by the local loan shark, wants to be a wizard, but the village wizard rejects him as his apprentice.
Yeah, that's actually an important detail, is that Willow has a desire, a dream to be a wizard, a powerful wizard. And he fails the initiation because he didn't, trust his instincts. Mm-hmm. But I think the wizard that, sees some potential, so he sets him on this task to return the baby, because they know that more of these creatures are going to come looking for the baby, and they'll not be safe if the baby stays.
Yeah, and I really like the part where the wizard says they have to talk to the bones.
Yes.
And then he whispers to Willow that the bones say nothing.
Exactly.
Which is great, because it tells you that power only lies in what people give it.
Yep.
And I think
it isn't that there's actually any kind of magic that he actually wields other than the belief that others place in him.
And I think he must have owed the loan shark money on some medieval multi-level marketing scam, because the bones say we have to get rid of Fulbert or whatever his name is. And then so they also send him out in the littlest pikemen, because when the rat dog comes, you see 4 or 5 little dudes with spears just come in and take out the trash.
Also, since we're just here, and I want to make sure we give him credit, obviously, as Candace mentioned, he was in Masters of the Universe, but he was also in previous episode Legend and Rescuers Down Under. Billy Barty just is one of those guys who has the "I'm a wizard" voice, and he does that kind of craggled extension voice. He's great in this. Honestly,
he's an amazing actor. Obviously, he has since passed, but I feel like he would have been a really fun person to hang out in a bar with. He just seems like a really cool dude, anyways. And then there's just something fun about him, and so he lends fun to magic, because magic can be very serious, but he instantly makes it funnier.
Well, it's sort of like the wink and a nod, but since he's always winking,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just as a complete aside, I imagine there's a guild of little people who, every year make sure there's a Christmas movie. But this movie makes them the heroes.
Yep.
And you don't get that a lot, which is why I think Willow's incredible. But also, in case you missed it, Tony Cox is one of them, and he's the elf from Bad Santa. Mm-hmm. And it's just funny to see him when he's 20.
Yeah.
And
he's the one with the spear, right?
Yes. And he's the one who kills the wolf dog hamster thing. But it's just the fact that they make him a different race, just like the hobbits, but it doesn't matter. They're the heroes.
Yep.
It's awesome. It's why this fantasy world works so well.
Yeah, because everyone in the village is an actual little person, except for maybe the kids, and they're all playing instruments and square dancing and wielding weapons. Actually, it's really well done.
They got over 200 little people for this.
And I will say, it's why I think, in my mind, and we'll discuss this at the end, but why I like it more than Labyrinth in some ways, because Labyrinth's well, maybe we can make those people dance. And there's just a song, and I love David Bowie in this, but this movie is just there's different groups of people, they're all fighting for the same cause. Let's go for it. It feels more Peter Jackson than it does.
Well, anytime there's a film that takes a minority or a trope and turns them into something that is standard.
Yeah.
And not the focus of what they are, it's very endearing and it's very fresh to the palate. It's much like seeing a plus-size person in a movie not be the bumbling idiot or the lazy friend.
And
or the gay character being his whole personality is that the character is gay. It's just they happen to be gay and they are also in the film. That's very refreshing. I love a good palate cleanser.
Well,
it's like a sorbet.
I've been rewatching one of my favorite podcasts is doing a walkthrough of Melrose Place, and there's the gay character, and that's what he is, the gay character.
The gay character, yeah.
And he doesn't ever have a boyfriend. He's just the gay character.
He's not allowed to kiss. He's not allowed to have sex. He's just there to be gay.
And remind us that AIDS exists.
Yes.
Right?
It was the 90s.
But here, it's just that they're a different group. And guess what? Val Kilmer's going to reference that he's short, but that's the joke. And the fact is, he's more useful than Val Kilmer in the scene anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not kid power. It's just we have to elbow each other because we're dudes, and that's the script.
No, I mean he even has they even have their own fake derogatory term for these people, which is peck.
Yeah.
Pecs. They're pecs.
Which, by the way, I did see on one thing that it was an idea thrown out that every time, if you wanted to do a drinking game with this, drink every time you say peck. And as a healthcare worker, I'd like to advise against this idea because you will die.
Yeah, they do say it a lot.
I say it a
because
lot.
everyone is horrendously racist to these people.
Yes, yeah. I mean, well, it's a perfect example of just people are assholes. You know what I mean? Everyone's just rude to each other. No one gives a shit about anyone. But that's all right because in the end,
he wins. He's right.
He's right, so that's hot.
Well, no, I mean, actually, the important thing to understand and pay attention to, I mentioned, Willow is the hero. He is the one on the hero's journey. He goes from wanting to be this wizard to being a wizard in his own way,
right.
Building that power, growing into that power.
He is more a wizard than the wizard he grew up with in his own village.
Exactly.
Because he legitimately wields real magic.
Real magic.
He's
exactly.
Willow mind freak because he's disappearing bunnies.
Does that mean he's like floating above a Bass Pro pyramid somewhere?
Well, he runs his own casting agency for very short and very tall people. Maybe he has the money to build a pyramid he can float on.
There you go. So we were introduced to some other races, including the brownies, which this is where we get into like Celtic lore.
And they're racist toward the Nelwyn, even though they're shorter.
Yeah.
That's because the brownies are French.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, they sound like a bad French accent.
Well, that's why they hate
Monty Python doing
that's why,
a bad Monty
exactly.
Python French accent.
Fart in your erection.
I will insult you again. And so, yeah, I mean, the brownies are funny and cute in that, back then, in the sense that they are that classic French trope where, they look down on everybody and they tease everybody and they think they're like a chihuahua. They're very tiny, but they're very aggressive and scary. And so that was a very funny trope back then. They are actually the one thing that I don't feel holds up well.
Although
in the movie, in that like rewatching it now, that's the one thing that I would immediately say, oh, this was filmed a while ago because it's not a practical. It was what they had at the time, as close to CGI as possible, right?
Yeah.
And so it is one of the few things where I'm like, ooh, it's a little cringy, and that I can tell that it just doesn't hold up as well. But it wasn't awful. But it was enough that was probably the first time that my suspension of disbelief was paused. And I was like, oof, that looks a little weird, but let's keep going.
To your point,
yeah.
I wonder if some of those scenes weren't filmed like later, like they weren't reshoots, because sometimes it looks better than others, and then sometimes the shadows are just wrong, right? Like, and again, previous episode, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and sometimes they're just like in front of like a pair of shoes, but they didn't make a big pair of shoes. They just zoomed into a single frame, and the shadows are wrong, and so sometimes it feels like it was as though they did a test screen, and they're like, we need more of those brownies.
The littlest people.
The littlest punchline. Because that's what they do. They show up. And again, when Willow's walking around, they don't come up to his knee. So they're tiny people. And sometimes they show up at a place before he does.
Yeah. I mean,
how do they move that fast?
They're the Fae, essentially.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what they're supposed to
Right.
represent. So...
But then sometimes they forget that, and they don't lean into it enough. It's a very strange story.
And
it is.
And one of them roofies themselves and lusts after a cat.
Oh, dude, when it becomes the most recent Cats movie, and he's like, I'm going to fuck a cat. And you're just like...
Yeah. In fact, let me kind of recap what brought us to that. And that was that so when they were very apprehensive about giving the baby over to Mad Mardigan, only after being stranded there for days and an army passing by them, and nobody wants it. They're like, fine, we'll give Mad Mardigan, we're going to give you the baby.
Mad Mardigan is a petty criminal who's been locked in a crow cage to starve to death.
Exactly. They're like, and Willow knows this is not a good idea, but after a few days, he's like, realistically, who am I going to give this baby to? There's literally no one to do this to. And so he gives the baby up, and it is only as Willow and his companion are going back that they see these brownies with the baby, only to find out the baby has been stolen away from Mad Mardigan, because much like Willow had anticipated, he is not the watchful caregiver that he needs to be.
The army passes by, and this dude who's his own friend flat out says, "I knew you'd end up in a crow cage. You can stay here and rot," and just walks off.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
The Aryan Brotherhood shows up. I'll also say we haven't talked about it much, but like it starts out very much like Fellowship, where this asshole bald like dude who's the head of the town or something is supposed to walk along. Half of them give up immediately, except for Willow and his buddy Migosh, and they're starving. They're literally waiting for something to happen, and Mad Madigan is just like, "Look, I can help you on this quest." And the movie leaves Mad Madigan and the baby, but we don't know if Mad Madigan carried out his word or not, which is, frankly, not bad storytelling, because we're supposed to figure out, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? Or is he just, and then
what you end up realizing is he's just a guy.
He's just a guy.
Yeah, he's just a guy. He was like, yeah, I was watching the baby, but then I had a chance to get some puss, and so, oops, I lost my baby. We all, right? Am I right?
Trying to get some puss? Yeah, no.
Yeah, right? And you forget that you were watching a baby?
No. Some of that,
can't say that's ever happened.
Some of that sweet D. But I will say, this is George Lucas saying, but what if there was Han Solo? Like, it's just like there's a rogue that shows up who's trapped. Luckily, my Han Solo in this movie isn't trapped in carbonite.
Exactly.
If only I could fix this little waddler I got.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and
so Willow and Migosh end up going to where following the brownies, trying to get and pursuing them to try to get the baby back. And they are captured by the French insult-throwing brownies. But they have a fairy queen who ends up freeing them and gives the
gives
exposition.
Willow, and gives Willow a mission and gives him a wand.
Yes.
I called her Galadriel's non-union Mexican equivalent.
That's right.
True.
I'm stealing your jokes, Nick.
Charlendria. I think was her name, Charlendria.
Yeah,
Chuck from accounting. But like we got this like gnarled like magic wand, and again like that turf J.K. Rowling aside, that Harry Potter stuff is just this mishmash. Like this is just, I want to learn how to use this magic, and he's a dude who wants to learn the magic. And guess what? In the end, his Chris Angel mindfuckery is what saves the day, and I love that. I love that so much.
But even the Queen Fairy though knows that he doesn't quite understand how to use this magic or the wand. So she's like, "Listen, I'm giving you this wand, but what I want you to do is go to Finn Rinzel, who is an actual enchantress who knows how to use it.
Yes.
And give this to her and help her and da 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 da. So really, it isn't like he's supposed to use it. He's just supposed to kind of deliver it.
Yeah, he's supposed to go to this island and get her.
And he can pick up some, and if you pick up a trick or two on the way, great. But this is, but that's kind of a cute thing where he's like, and so then he makes his way to this island to find her.
An island full of skulls.
Isn't it that always the way?
And it turns out that like she's just like a freaking meerkat or something.
That's right. And then a bird eventually too.
She becomes a lot of things.
Yeah. Willow has a hard time changing her back. But yeah, that's the whole point, is that he goes to the island and she's there, but she's been turned into a meerkat by the Queen Bavmorda.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's supposed to be able to turn her back, but he can't. So now the mission is to take the baby to the castle where she'll be safe, and on the way he's going to be taught by Finn Rinzel how to do magic enough to change her back.
Yeah, and I looked it up. She was actually a brush-tailed possum.
There you go.
That's what the animal is.
Is this before or after the bar fight?
This is after the bar fight, because the bar fight is where they all end up running into Mad Mardigan.
Yeah.
And he is
as a lady
cross-dressing, because in every good movie there's cross-dressing, hence Mulan.
Yeah.
And so just it's one of those things that drag is funny and it's hilarious, and
it's the 80s.
And Lug, the husband, comes in and he's like, are you sleeping? Instead of catching him with his wife, this is my cousin, and the best line in the movie is "Wanna breed?" And then she goes, "Tempting. No, thank you." And I'm like, that is literally every woman has thought that at some point in their life.
When a man walks up and says, "Wanna breed?"
Does any dumb shit, and you're like, that's tempting, but
no.
thank you.
One of those foldy things from they just go 1, 2, breed. No. Oh,
MASH.
A lot of stuff happens at the bar. Like Willow wants to get milk for the baby, but then everyone starts beating him up for some reason. And
by the way, if you ever show up at a bar and ask for milk, you might get beat up.
Taking a baby into a bar.
Unless you're at Olga's Cantina and that milk is blue, never say it.
Girl.
And then meanwhile, we find Mad Mortigan trying to get some, as we've discussed.
No, he's already gotten some, and he's trying to hide that shit. Let's be very clear.
Yeah, the husband's home, and so yeah.
And then, meanwhile, Sorcha, the Queen's daughter, and General Kale, who's got a skull mask, show up, and let's just say the romantic subplot starts.
Well,
when you're a rogue in drag and the boss's samurai daughter, things got to happen.
I will also say at this point too, it's not that we've lost the plot, but like this is a scene out of Blazing Saddles or something.
Yeah.
Like the guy in drag is going a left hook against a guy named Lug, who's probably a Canadian professional wrestler. Like, and then Willow is like sliding on his knees underneath to grab a dagger. Like, this is the humor from a 1980-something movie, and I'm there for it.
And
so
the barroom brawl,
and the cat, and meanwhile the brownie roofies himself and wants to get with a cat.
It's true.
There's
and that is the first time we
something.
learn about the love potion.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why they
it's
do
important.
This portion of it is because after the where they go to the island and they find the bushtail possum, who is actually going to end up being like your wizard teacher. The brownies accidentally dose Mad Mardigan with a love potion, and that's when he declares his undying love for Sorcha.
Right.
Sorcha.
And she is so
I'm going to call her Red.
And she is so
My
starved
girl.
for affection in her life that
Yeah.
this lout spouting bad Shakespearean love poetry touches her heart.
Yeah. Well,
Because-
she's very skeptical at first because then she finds out that they're in there trying to take the baby, and then she's like, and so then she's pissed. Now she's a woman scorned.
Yeah,
Because she's like, don't say nice things to me, and I thought you wanted to sleep with me, and now it's just a deception. So now she's super pissed, and that's way more dangerous, right? And just, trust me. And then of course, but later on, she's like, you keep thinking about it, and you're like, maybe he does love me. Okay.
Also, it's a 1980-something Val Kilmer, and he's hot as fuck in this movie.
Oh yeah. This was right after they captured him, when he's sort of schmoozing on Sorcha. He's all half naked, showing that chest. He's wearing just actually the skirt, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
from his drag outfit.
Yeah.
So he's looking actually pretty freaking hot.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say the one thing that I'm like, they dye his hair black and give him like Native American, like the braid down the front. Like he's an extra in Pocahontas, which is something. It's just, but he's looking good, and
I think
he's
their goal was
bringing
they
it.
wanted him to look Viking-esque because they also put beads and stone in
Yeah.
his hair.
They did.
But to be fair,
It's very Celtic inspired.
It's supposed to be Celtic. I mean, I
So
agree.
it should have
comes
been
across
blonde also.
right, but I mean, listen, this is the '80s. That's what they thought it looked like.
Yeah.
They didn't know. They hadn't seen Braveheart yet.
I do appreciate though the fact that the characters are driven, except for him, in that Sorcha bad, him. Willow good, and then Willow has to convince him to help the whole time, and then he converts Sorcha. Like, it's just interesting to have it's not even a Greek chorus, it's that there's a neutral body. Because Willow, you get the feeling, would like be the person on Nextdoor who found that kitten, who wants to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and then Sorcha is mwahaha, like Snively Whiplash. So why not have someone in the middle who has to go both ways?
That's where I step in. Oh, never mind. Sorry. I thought we were talking about something else.
Speaking of going both ways, Mad Mardigan, Val Kilmer, half-naked Val Kilmer, swinging around that sword,
Yes.
knowing his way around
Everything.
sword play.
He is the greatest swordsman, which is great because he claims that when he's in the crow's nest, and they're all laughing at him because they're like, "Well, yeah, if you really were, you wouldn't be locked up in this thing." But he's actually amazing.
The choreography, the fight sequences
it's
are
really
great.
good.
Absolutely,
it's really good.
This is one of the best parts about the movie. They took the care for these extra parts.
And also, as a film guy, Disney, learn a fucking lesson. In the Pirates movies, the sword scenes are 3 times too long.
Mm-hmm.
This is perfect.
Yeah.
It's tight. It's nice. You get the feeling he's the guy in charge. You end the scene. I don't need to see it for an hour. And those Orlando Bloom scenes, even in the first one, are 10 minutes long. It's too long.
I know.
And I'm a fencer. This movie gets so much right. I just wish it had more of a cult following. Like this.
I think it has a huge cult following.
Oh yeah, totally.
Thank you to our new fans.
It has a Disney Plus sequel coming
they're
out.
about to come out with the new Disney Plus series,
Which is why I did this.
It looks effing amazing. I watched it right before I came up here.
The trailer?
And and I got really excited now because I wanted to see. I just want to take a moment and look at it again, and I was like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. The only thing I'm sad about is that Willow's best friend Migosh the actor that played him passed away, and so he will not be able to be the best friend because there is a best friend who looks kind of like him in the opening trailer, and I was like, holy shit, is that him? So I went down the rabbit hole and yada yada yada, and he had passed. But yeah, I was like, this series looks fucking banging.
They bring back Willow, they bring back Saoirse. Val Kilmer might show up for season 2. He's not really in good health at the moment.
We'll see about that.
He was in the new Maverick.
He was.
Briefly.
Very briefly.
Well, that's
and
not
no talking, obviously.
If it was a way for him to do as a voiceover, it might be better. He's not in good health. I feel bad because I like Val Kilmer. I like him in a lot of things.
Well, and his son did his voice in the Maverick movie,
So, anyway, I'm glad they dug this out of the Disney vault because there's a lot of things that they shouldn't have, like a live-action Pinocchio, because horror on horrors. Like, Pinocchio's a masterpiece. Leave it alone, please. Leave anything alone.
Well, it's funny you say that. Chris and I decided because we had Disney Plus, we were going to go back and watch every single animated Disney film in order from 1937 going forward. And so I just watched Dumbo last night for the first time. I'd never seen it.
Oh, wow.
What do you think?
That's a journey.
It was a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Dumbo's problematic, but
yeah, I mean it is. It was sad and upsetting in a lot of weird ways.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is. But then there were other things that, like the train thing. I think I can. So that I had no idea that's what it was from.
Yeah.
Well,
like it was very interesting. I kind of left there with like a wow moment. And then I saw they're like, we're doing a live act. They're redoing Dumbo and stuff. And I'm like, I don't think you need to redo this. I mean, just kind of.
No, they already did.
Did they? Okay, I was
Burton,
like, yeah.
Tim Burton.
Yeah.
I apologize. My memory's wrong. Was Pinocchio before that or after that?
I thought Pinocchio was coming out soon.
Pinocchio was before. So
you saw Pinocchio.
Yeah, so 37 is Snow White,
right.
40 is Pinocchio, 41 is
Sleeping Beauty? Cinderella.
Dumbo and Fantasia and Dumbo. And then 41 is Bambi and da-da-da-da-da-da. And V for Victory Flight or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, where does Victory Through Air Power come in?
It's the next one. It's after Bambi.
So, what did you think of Pinocchio?
I thought it was surprisingly, the art and stuff is beautiful for it, but it was...
It's classic.
It was interesting
it's dark,
in that...
but it's classic.
It's one of my favorites.
I sat down and thought about, what was the world in 1940? This is like the third seating of
Germans on the march.
Yeah, of Roosevelt, and you're wanting to remind people not to be greedy, to stay away from like jazz and liquor and smoking, and you need to be mindful and rational, and you don't need to indulge and have credence and things like that. Because of the state of the world.
Nice take.
And that is what was, and so that's what we're actually doing. Each night before we watch it, we pull up what was going on in the year of the movie being released, and how would it relate to an audience member sitting and watching it. What is the take-home message that a child of that time would take, or a mom might lean over and go, see, that's why you don't do that. That's kind of a fun little side thing we're doing, little project.
That scene where he turns into a donkey is one of the most horrifying...
Yeah.
Of those original movies.
Yeah.
Pinocchio is a masterpiece. I mean
the art
Snow
board
White is a
beautiful and
masterpiece.
stuff, but-
Dumbo's a masterpiece. But like, there's horror in Pinocchio that you don't expect. Because like, Pinocchio, what's happening to me? Like, it's Cronenberg like nonsense. It's incredible. To me, the problem with making it live action is that it's just Tom Hanks CGI. Like,
well,
who
I think
could
you're
care?
gonna lose the message of that. What were they trying to explain to the world of 1940?
Yeah.
And it was that you need to be mindful. You need to stay in school. You need to stay out of war. You need to stay out of conflict. You need to stay loyal to your parents. You need to stay from jazz and liquor and smoking and pool. And these are the things that are going to take you down this road that I'm going to lose you and I'm never going to get you back.
Also,
like, it's a very interesting concept.
But it's also like a tight 75 minutes. Because Pinocchio just has to say, or Jiminy Cricket says, it's Monstro. And you get it, because it's a monster whale.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Well, and
this
we were
one's
also,
almost 2 hours.
Yeah. And I know we're getting off track of Willow, but I will tell you, we also talked about that's interesting at the thought process of in 1940s, what were people's thoughts about like the humanity of a whale?
Oh yeah.
You know, and the fact that it was totally fine to kill a whale. That no one would think that these are beautiful creatures that need to be saved, which is what it would be like in a Disney movie today.
Well,
because it was a different world we lived in.
But it's also 1940s.
Yeah,
so what's the giant thing swallowing up poor people? It's Germany swallowing up the Poles. So an American voiced person should break it from the inside.
So does Monstro have a little mustache?
Kind of does, because when you watch him jump out of the water, they leave the white foam of the wave over his mouth.
It's very creepy. If you sit and watch it in that respect, you will have a totally different fireside chat kind of view of this film.
By the way, you'll have to be drinking black coffee or something, but my daughter said, can we do a podcast where we watch all the Disney movies in order? And I said, Naomi, one day we sure will. So.
Oh my gosh, I like the fact that I have the same ideas as a 7-year-old. Me and her, kindred spirits, yes.
Yeah. So it turns out that I'm good with movies and that Willow's about to fight demons.
So back to Willow. All right. The party has now arrived at Tir Aslan, which
after riding down the mountains on a shield.
Obviously, because that's what you did back then. You either rode down a snowy mountain on a shield, or you laid on a piece of leather behind a horse on the ground. That was a very fun trope. That's a very fun thing to do. Yeah.
And Mad Mortigan has met up with the guys who left him to die in the cage, who turns out got whooped, and they're hiding out in this village.
Yeah, it's sad. And they are hiding out because, come to find out, that entire castle has been cursed and it's overrun with trolls now.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they've also captured Sorsha. You know, never be the first one into the basement.
That's right. And Sorsha has realized that she's falling in love with Mardigan, and ends up defecting to his side. So that's good. Willow accidentally turns a troll into a two-headed Eborisk monster. And there's a play on words there. It's supposed to represent Siskel and Ebert. And that's why it's called Eber-Siskel. That's what the monster's name is. That was a purposeful decision. I read this by the directors that the two-headed monster is the two heads of Ebert and Siskel.
Wow, it's like Mayor Ebert and Assistant Gene from Godzilla.
Apparently Ebert took it. Oh wait, no. Which one was it? Ebert took it very personally, because he hated this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I believe it. There weren't enough tits.
Well, that's why it was called. That's why the monster was called Eber-Sisk. And that was an inside joke which got out. I mean, how could it not? That's pretty obvious. And they, and whatnot. So anyways, Willow accidentally turns a troll into this monster with two heads. Chaos ensues. What's his name? Kidnaps
General
Alora and takes her back to the castle, to the evil queen. And they prepare to do the ritual, which will banish Alora's soul forever. That's very ominous.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's more than 3 ever. One less than 5 ever.
And meanwhile, Willow has, killed 2 people.
Yeah, well, I mean,
like he stabs one and throws him down another guy down the stairs.
Play stupid games, win stupid fucking prizes, Sometimes you gotta shank a bitch.
Or two.
Or two. So.
And so we have Willow, Matt Mortigan, Sorcha, Eric, the dude in the gold.
Right.
And their guys all decide they're going to go lay siege to Chick Mordor.
Yes.
Yes, Bad Morta's castle, and they're all camping outside, and Bad Morta's like, "Oh no, none of this." And she walks
You're
outside.
all pigs!
Yeah, and she curses them. She curses them to all turn into pigs.
Okay. But then Willow uses his wand to protect himself and finally restores Raziel back to her humanoid form. And then we have an old lady fight.
Oh,
Which is-
well. First of all, real quick though,
Yes.
she turns everyone back into human.
That's right. That's right. She
and
does
they
do that.
hide in holes in the ground because
Yes.
Willow had a fun little anecdote about gophers in his garden, and they made fun of him. But it turns out he had a good plan.
That's right.
And so they came out because Willow said, "Oh, I'm going to kill you," and they're like, "Oh, just someone shut him up." So they open the doors and they run out there and they try to kill him, and then they storm the castle. And then old lady fight.
Old lady fight.
Yeah, it's like Saruman and Gandalf in Orthanc, only
is.
two women.
It is
Yeah,
like
actually, yeah. Well, because I'm not sure I understood why, but it seemed that Bav Morda was like turning into the Crypt Keeper, like right before our eyes.
Yeah, she was starting to get a little ragged there.
Yeah, I mean, when Helen Mirren fights Judi Dench, these things are going to happen.
Well, is that because I have a question. Had she already knocked the bowl with the blood on it at that point?
No.
No. Okay. Oh, well then maybe I
Like
just
when
didn't
she
notice that earlier.
started the ritual,
Right.
like at the very beginning, that's when you first noticed it. And it was
Oh.
gradual throughout that
You know
process.
what? I got to tell you, I think I was naughty, and I don't think I really noticed that. I was probably folding laundry at the time.
Yeah, this is like a bloodbath. Like Kale kills Eric, and so Mortigan goes after him. Sorcha is shivving Mommy Dearest's druids, and you have the old lady cat fight, and there's Willow trying to grab the baby. So we
Yeah.
get the Benny Hill soundtrack.
But it is a very good sequence of events, and they don't overplay it. I mean, that's the nice thing about this, is that every fight sequence is just long enough, not too long.
Yeah. And the queen ends up dying not because she is killed by someone else, but by her own greed and whatnot. That is how she is slain, because she knocks into the blood, which accidentally helps her finish the spell, which exiles herself.
Yes,
After
but
Willow
did
does sleight of
she
hand with a
actually
baby.
die?
Well, see, that's where the sequel could step in. And that could be where the Disney Plus series steps up.
Exactly.
Which is, she has somehow found a way back from the Shadow Realm, or wherever the fuck she's hanging out.
Yeah.
And, and they could use
But-
the same, old lady kind of trope, but you never know.
Back to Nick's point, how did Willow win and trick Bath Morda?
Mind freak.
Mind freak.
Like,
Sleight of hand.
He pulled a sleight of hand where he made the baby disappear.
And then he pulls the baby from behind a dumpster like it's Ghostbusters 2. It's strange.
Amazing film.
Masterpiece.
Better sequel. Better than the original.
If you haven't
Your
seen
love is lifting me higher.
Yes, Vigo!
guest of the show, if you haven't listened to it, buddy Zach Krause goes, I think it's a movie everyone should see because my family immigrated through Ellis Island.
Oh.
And when you see the Statue of Liberty, well, that is America. And you know what? Since Canadian Dan Aykroyd wrote this script, I believe it. But yeah, so as this movie ends, like literally he razzmatazz as a baby from behind a square.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. And,
Like,
and
he
then,
hides the baby behind a rock.
Off scene. Meanwhile.
well, it's adorable. It's to show that sometimes the simplest things win. It's to mimic what happened to him in his village when he was trying to do the sleight of hand with the pig.
Yeah.
In the very first
And
scene.
everyone laughed
and
at
everyone laughed at him, but this time
He saved the day.
He saved the day with it.
I do like the idea that there's some, and I'm sure Matt will correct me, that there is actually, in fact, a rap battle of history, but like, there's like this Gandalf-esque, like, versus Mind Freak himself rap battle, where they're just like, sometimes the real magic is tricking people with a card. Like, Penn and Teller versus, Harry Potter. I do love that idea that the baby was just slightly off screen thanks to a magic trick with a pig, I think in the first scene.
Exactly.
They Chekhov's gun that whole thing with a pig.
Chekhov's
The real magic are the friends who made along the way.
Chekhov's mind freak.
The magic was inside you all along.
That's why I have this McMuffin right
Exactly.
here. Not a McGuffin, a McMuffin.
So of course then, yay, Evil Queen is gone, and so Willow is gifted the spell book by Raziel.
Yes. So he can become a real wizard.
So he can become a real wizard. Now he's got a book, and shit's gonna get real. Mad Mardigan and Red adopt the baby, and they go live with her in the restored city, while Willow returns home to the village, and he is finally the celebrated hero he always should have been.
Yes. Bravo!
Yay! I feel like we should do like an Ewok song now.
Yub nub. Yub nub.
For those of you not, watching our video feed, Candace was shaking her yub nubs.
I was.
So,
that's the OnlyFans Yub Nub dance.
Final thought.
So, I think Willow is a fantastic movie, a classic. It is a fresh take on the classic sword and sorcery. It's wonderful, and I'm so glad they're bringing it back. And Disney Plus is doing a sequel TV series. It's going to be great. I have every faith. All the actors are great. Val Kilmer is hot, and it's just a great movie. Gotta watch it.
Matt.
I think it should have been a bit longer and explained some more stuff. Like they cut some, not too much longer, but there's some stuff that could have been explained better, like who Charlinda is precisely. But it was good. It was entertaining. It was well made, and you should definitely see it.
Candace?
I have a weird love-hate relationship with this movie. I love Warwick Davis. I love the fact that they gave all these little people a respectable and fun and interesting movie to be in. But I feel like it still lacks something for me. And I can't put my finger on it, and I don't know what it is. And I don't know if it's because I watched it kind of further out than when it originally came out. And so maybe I can't appreciate it as much. I don't have that, Val Kilmer was never like a heartthrob in my generation or in my life. Because I saw Top Gun for the first time last year.
I'm so sorry.
I know. Listen, we all bear, have our crosses to bear, right? And so I think I miss out on a little bit of the member berries or whatever it is that gives that movie something extra special. But I think that I like the movie enough that I'm going to really love this modern adaptation of the series on Disney Plus. And so, because I've watched the trailer like 3 times now, and it really, really appeals to me. So maybe it's that I always have liked this movie and liked the story. It's just slightly a little outdated. And, I don't know, there's like a gap. Because I like all this other, classic, like you said, Labyrinth and, that kind of shit. Last Unicorn, like this classic type of era films. But yeah, I like it, but I just feel like I needed something else. And I think the Disney Plus series is going to give me the something else.
Well, if Disney's going to make Fetch an actual thing, they might as well do it with this movie versus Avatar.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. Okay. Oh, I'm glad you brought this up. Oh, God. There is nothing special about Avatar whatsoever. I just can't. Why would you...
You can't even?
I can't even. Why would you make this fucking... First off, the theme park looks beautiful, right? But why would you make it like 15 years after the movie was even popular? And then the movie itself, it's not all that great. It is not all that great. It is Fern Gully. It's just Fern Gully with a bigger budget. That is all it is. And now I'm upset.
That movie that movie made me empathize with the cat people. It's so sad when their tree gets nuked.
I will say I both agree and disagree with Matt. I wish there was more of this, but I wish this original movie was less than 2 hours and 10 minutes. If this was at 90 minutes and then had an immediate sequel, that's what I want. Because I agree with you, this story is good, I just wish there was more of it. But for a kid's movie like this clearly is supposed to be, it's a little too long. Being 130 minutes, I think, is the original. With that being said, I have nothing bad to say about it.
Yeah, I have a quick question about that. I mean, I don't have kids, but you do. Yeah. And you actually watched Willow with her.
My daughter.
Was she able to sit and watch it that whole time? What did she think about it? Was that too long for her?
I mean, she had the right emotional moments when the emotional moments happened. Like, she felt bad for the kid with the Moses scene. She felt like it was good that Willow found her, the other kids, yada yada. But by the end, she was getting distracted because there's a lot of talky talk between the scenes that matter.
Yes, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, again, even that terrible recent Lightyear movie is 92 minutes.
Oh.
And so, like, keeping it to that timeline, at least she'd pay attention.
Right.
40 minutes more is a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And guess what? There's nothing in there that adds things. If instead you wrote a 3-hour script and broke it into 2 90-minute movies, you're about there, because right in that middle where they're in that abandoned castle and the bad guys are coming, you could end the movie there and start the sequel then instead of 40 years later. That being said, Willow is perfectly fine. It does all the things that it needs to do right. And for the late 80s, it's a very long fantasy movie. It's longer than movies we've done. Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, Never-Ending Story by about 20 to 40 minutes. That time is well used. I just feel like it would lose the audience. It earned its money back by 400%.
Wow.
But that doesn't mean it's good at what it does. I like this movie a lot. I just feel like it has a lot that it could have improved on. But that's better than being a mess. It's better to have an extra course that no one eats than 5 courses that no one wants to eat. Anyway, I appreciate you guys listening, but unfortunately we're out of time. But guess what?
What?
This movie's going to come out right before the Academy Awards. So we're going to do the Academy Award movie that everyone hates. Next week, we're covering Crash. Wow. So stay tuned next week and every future week as we put those movies you thought you liked on trial. And thanks for listening.
Bye!
Season 9 of Myopia Movies is produced by Nick Hoffman and Daniel Sudis. It is hosted by Nick Hoffman and stars Daniel Sudis and Matt Quinn. The theme music is Surf Shimmy by Kevin MacLeod of Incomtech.com and is licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and review us wherever podcasts are found. Thanks, guys.